there, I'm Coach Micheal Burt, the Super Coach, and every single week I come to you with a new podcast based on a new book that I'm writing called Flip the Switch. And this is a book about activation of prey drive. How do you find another gear? How do you pursue something big in the world? How do you break through? Many of the people that come to us want to know, how do they do this in their people? And when you study the person that I've got and I'm interviewing today, Brandon Dawson, he's really done that. He's built, grown, scaled, sold a company for $151 million. And somewhere along the way, he had to flip his switch. and somebody, he had to figure out how to flip other people's switches. So Brandon, this is a new book that I'm writing. Number one, I want to thank you for joining me today. You've got a fascinating story. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. So thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Great to be on your show.
Now, when I say flip the switch, and I use the word prey drive, which is an instinctual ability to see something and have the activation and persistence to pursue it. What's your first memory in your life of having that happen in your life?
Well, the first memory was when I was a little kid, and we lived on a little farm, and my parents wanted they grounded me. And so, I wasn't little, I was probably 16. And the key driver for me was I had a new girlfriend I wanted to go see, and they were going out of town. So between football practice, working at the restaurant, and school, they figured if they told me I had to pick the walnuts up in the walnut orchard, which I hated doing, that it would keep me busy enough that I wouldn't be able to leave the house. And so they took off, and I went to school the next day, and I saw a note on the senior lockers said, senior fund drive. And so I invited them over, told them I'd pay them some money if they helped me pick up the walnuts. And we crushed it in 2 days. And not only did we sell all the walnuts, or pick them up, but we sold it, and they cleaned the orchard, and it was gorgeous. And I was able to go spend my time the whole week with my girlfriend. And I think that was the first time I actually realized I can choose to kick it in gear and make it go.
Well, when you think about that, I was kind of raised to be a mule, right? Which is do the work.
Yeah.
Put the work in. I was a basketball coach, and we worked 80 hours a week every week. We came in at 6:30 in the morning. We went home at midnight. We worked nights and weekends. And then when I started my business, that there's that mule in me. I haven't mastered to the manager, to the magician, so to speak. But you kind of had some revelations early in life, right? That, hey man, there's a better way. There's leverage here. Other people can do the work. We can help them. We can all prosper here, right? That was kind of some things you had early. Do you think somebody brought that to your attention, or was it a revelation that you had, or an awareness that you had?
Yeah, it was a little bit of all that, So one of my first mentors when I was a kid was my football coach. And I remember in the 7th grade, I was really timid. And he'd get on me, and he'd say, Dawson, you need to put the hit on, stop being timid. And in the 7th grade, I played real safe. And then in the 8th grade, I remember on a kickback return, this guy was coming, it was 1-on-1, and I wasn't going to let the team down. And I put a stick on this guy. I cracked him so hard that when I popped up, I was like, thought something was going to be hurt on either side. And it wasn't. He popped up, I popped up. And I remember this feeling inside of me, like, if you go all in and you put everything into it, you're not going to get hurt. It's when you try to protect that you're going to get hurt. So I think little messages like that. And then watching my family, I had two stories. I had one family that my stepfather started a business, and we lived in a little tiny apartment, and my mom and I'd go to work every day and watch them. And then I'd go live with my dad and my stepmom. They didn't have any money. And in order to put us through school, we all had to work and do chores. And so I learned early on, if you want something, nobody's going to give it to you. You got to do what I learned in 8th grade in football. You got to put your head down and be fully committed to the stick, or you're going to get hurt, or you're not going to get what you want. And I think that has just been the way I've operated, since I was a kid. The harder you go at something, the less likely you're going to get hurt, and the more impact you're going to have. And I think that is just stuck with me.
Yeah, it reminds me, as you said that, of a concept I always had, that playing not to lose always guarantees losing.
Yep.
And I learned that the hard way by being up in a big game when I was a coach, and I went into prevent, which is a sign, Brandon, that you don't believe you can win. When you go into prevent, it signals even to your high school players, like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, we're up, we're winning. And what he's really saying psychologically is, man, I don't think we're not supposed to be winning.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there was some consternation my senior year because our coach had gone to prevent versus we went to the state playoffs my junior year, and we were all offense. And then for some reason there was this switch, and everyone on the team felt it, and it put us at odds with coach to the point where we had to have a little intervention with coach. And I don't know what it was. He just felt like he lost a lot of his big players. And so I think he switched to, and he had a lot of parents at him about making sure their kids didn't get hurt because, it's just a smaller team and we were playing expectations were to play more competitive. So he dialed it back. Well, as a player, I could feel that.
Yes.
We do safe things versus aggressive things. And you can feel when someone's playing safe. There's no question.
Well, let's talk about, you went out into the world, figured out a way to go out and have investors early. You built this company, right? And then as I was studying your story of origin, after going out and raising this capital, the investors call you and you think they're calling you to pat you on the back and
tell me what a great job I'm doing.
Tell you what a great job. And they really crushed you. They really got you there and said, look, we want you to sell this. We want our position. We want our money out. And you had that conflict, right? And I guess what I want to get to at this point is I actually believe that conflict is necessary for expansion in life.
Yeah.
The way I see conflict is, it's kind of the old Jerry Maguire. You think we're fighting. I think we're communicating. But a lot of people that I coach today struggle with that conflict. They really will not address it. And you kind of had to address it. Like they brought that conflict to you. And during the show, like when I was watching your story of origin, you really got emotional. And I can only imagine because it brings up, I believe that true emotion comes from conflict. I used to think that passion created emotion, but anytime I really wanted to do something big, my prey drive was really activated. It's because I felt like I got really screwed. And when I felt like I got really screwed by somebody, Brandon, it's like it's on now, man. It's like you have flipped the switch. Is that talk a little bit about that story and what it did for you though?
Yeah. And because of my lack of experience, I made some decisions when that switch got flipped to I was like, screw you, I'm leaving, I'm going to buy the business back. And had I just said, okay, and controlled the sale, I would have made tens of millions of dollars. But instead I made barely, $700,000. And so in reflection, I could have made better choices with experience in that moment, because when that flip got switched, or when the switch got flipped, I did what I did on the football field. I did the one thing I knew how to do, which was put my head down and blast as hard as I could. And in that moment, that wasn't necessarily, I needed to switch and do it differently.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very costly. And in reflection, I created a lot of conditions that probably put them in a position where they lost some confidence and trust and opted to take that route versus the route I wanted to go. So, it's only through making these huge mistakes and then how you react and respond to them that you learn. And most business owners think they'll just figure it out, but depending on how complicated or how impactful that moment is, you don't really know, because you don't know what you don't know until you're in that moment. And I wish I had done several things differently then, but that emotion is not anger at what they did. It was frustration and disappointed in me for what I didn't do. And I think it's only in reflection that I can go back and say, here are so many different ways I could have created a better outcome. And I chose not to do it at the time, because if it's a nail, you hit it with a hammer, and it didn't necessarily call for that. And so I try to impart that wisdom on business owners today, that just because your intuition, that intuitive thing, intuition is an important thing, and you develop it over time with wisdom and experience, and you really got to be looking to develop it. It's not going to develop by accident. And I think that emotion was the reflection of, had I done some things maybe differently, I could have had such a different outcome, but yet it set me on the course I'm at today. So I can't be disappointed about it.
Well, it's almost like, I think about if you look at Trump, did he make a decision to run for president and win the night that Obama made fun of him at the correspondence dinner? Did that flip the switch in him? I look at these seminal moments in people that, although you may have felt like you responded poorly, did it really, was it what you needed to go do what you were about to do, which was reverse engineer, build this thing, right? I mean, that's kind of what,
that was the flip. That was the switch. Definitely walking out of there, I was like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to re-innovate it. I'm going to do it exactly how I think I need to do it. I'm not going to take anybody's money. I'm going to prove that you don't need other people's money. I'm going to build it profitably. I'm going to build it without resistance. I'm going to build it without stress. I'm going to build it with alignment with people. Like I made that choice, and then I just went all in. And when the lawyers and the accountants were saying, you can't do this, and this isn't going to work, and the SEC won't let you do that, and no one's ever done this before, I didn't lay down and go, okay, I guess I'll change my mind. I'm like, I poked holes until I got what I wanted, because I was determined to get what I wanted. And then I launched.
Yeah. Here's an interesting paradox I think about you, because, I've been coaching people for 28 years, and you seem to have a real strong personality, but at the same time, you appear to be, I haven't worked closely with you, very people-centric, whereas most very strong personalities, have a hard time being too people-centric because they push so hard, right? There's a tremendous tension between them and their people. I mean, that's been the case with me my whole life because of how hard I push, and the tension that at some point, typically people come to me a year or 2 years into, they go, man, I just can't go. I can't go like this. I love you, Coach Burt. I love you. Right. And then I look at people like Jobs, who they say, people that work with Jobs, they say it's the best thing. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's the best thing I've ever done. I look at people that work with Tillman Fertitta. I look at people that work with Grant. I look at people, and, it's like, so I guess where the complexity is for me as a young entrepreneur that I would ask you is, how do you maneuver that? Is it just you're going to the top of the mountain, Brandon, and whoever decides to come along is coming along? Is it, I think there's a lot of struggle there for young entrepreneurs that have this prey drive, who say, look, by God, I'm going all the way. Now you can come some of the way, part of the way, all of the way, right? And those people are going with me. The people that fade out, just fade out, man, because that's just life. What's your personal thoughts on that?
My first business, I just pushed and pushed and pushed people. And when the business sold, I realized I had 400 and something employees, and none of them really cared that I wasn't going to be the CEO anymore. And one of the things that I determined I was going to do the second iteration is I was going to do it with my team. I wasn't going to try to push my team. I was going to pull them. Mm-hmm. And so I learned, my daddy was a preacher. Mm-hmm. So I just reflected on all the contribution he gave to people. And I asked myself, if what I was doing wasn't working for me personally, how do I shift? And that's where I found Maxwell and really got into Maxwell's work, because mm-hmm. I didn't want to be a dictator. I wanted to be a benevolent dictator. Now, this is interesting. So you have dictators, and then you have inspirational leaders. Mm-hmm. And dictators aren't necessarily a good thing, but a benevolent dictator mm-hmm. is someone who still is in charge of where you're going, still is pushing to the vision and the mission without compromise, mm-hmm. and still has high demand and expectation for the end result. Mm-hmm. But they do it with love, admiration, appreciation, and determination for the people they need to do it with. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I wanted to be a really strong leader, and I recognized that just pushing on people and telling them what to do didn't work for me. So what I wanted to do was create a system where people wanted to win with me, but I couldn't do it by conceding and giving up the end goal. And I see that with a lot of business owners. They go one way or the other. I want to be respected as a great leader, so I'm going to let my people do what they think we need to do, and I'm going to trust them. And then the mission gets flawed. And ultimately, those same people blame the leader because they say poor strategy, poor execution. Everyone starts poking holes in what they did or didn't do. And so for me, I didn't want to be that kind of guy. And so if you can align your people's interests, their personal, professional, and financial goals. And I did this through the research of all the consolidation plays and mergers that failed. You know, when I would go out and I bought 120 businesses and I'd go to people and tell them what to do, they'd resist it, even if it was better for them financially, because I told them what to do. And I learned, because I took the same stuff out to my franchise people and they would just embrace it, use it, and go crazy and be so thrilled I gave it to them. So I had the dichotomy of two, the rich life, poor life. I had my own operations. Everyone resisted everything and I couldn't get them to do anything. And then I gave the stuff to my franchisees who loved it and appreciated it and dominated with it. So I started getting into the psychology of all the consolidations and mergers that failed. And what I got into and why I've softened up as a person is Dr. Robert Anthony, Beyond Positive Thinking, learning the psychology of a human being and realizing if it's my idea, they're going to resist it. If it's their idea, they're going to embrace it and go after it. And then all I have to do is give them the tools, resources, and inspiration to show them, because real leadership is making other people's success easy. So I just pivoted from it being about me to making it about them, and then tying what they want to accomplish into what I need done in order for me to accomplish my goals. And it just changed everything about the trajectory of the opportunity. And I think that's where most businesses struggle. They either don't lead or they lead through dictatorship, through abdication and dictatorship, and people get lost along the way and you can't take the mission when everybody's fighting with each other.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I was having dinner with, Sharon Lecter on Saturday night in Scottsdale, and we were discussing her time with Kiyosaki, because she and Kiyosaki basically wrote the first 10 books, Rich Dad Poor Dad series, and then went global and then licensed and then franchised, right? And then they decided to part ways and go in different directions. And, as I was thinking about that, the psychology piece, the reverse engineering piece, that you're talking about, of where it feels like, we got into this discussion about, she said Covey was your guy, right? I said, yes, that's who I studied the most for 8 years, deep disciple of Covey. And she said, well, why haven't you replicated Covey's model? When Covey was running his company, it's a $2 million company. He said, I was a terrible manager. I love teaching the 7 habits. I love being Covey. I love being a teacher. Then he put his son in charge, right? It becomes a $264 million company. And that comment at dinner just hit me so hard, because it could be possible that I'm a great coach but a terrible manager, and so for you, explain the reverse engineering piece. You did just a little bit right there, but this is really how you went out and built the companies that you ultimately sold for 151 million, and you reversed engineered the concept. So if you were explaining that in simple terms to a person, explain that concept of how you did that.
Yeah. So most acquisitions and consolidations would be me coming in and buying Coach's business, and then giving Coach a piece of the upside, because you got it to 2 million, but you don't know how to go to 200. So I come in and I buy a piece of your $2 million business. Now you work for me. And now I'm telling you and trying to get you to do the things you didn't do when you owned the business. And there's natural resistance there, because if you were going to do it, you would have done it on your own. That's one implication. Yep. So I got to somehow convince you to do it. The other implication is you didn't do it. You sold to me, and now we're doing it. And now you're pissed because you're seeing how much you left off out of the equation, but somehow now you're mad at me.
Yep.
So what I did is I wanted to remove both those obstacles. And the way I did that is by saying, look, Coach, here's what your business could do. I'm going to start a management company because I got 200 people like you that could all grow by 10x. And I'm going to build a management company that's going to build the resources to coach and help you do that, because I have the technical skill and awareness to do that. And instead of me buying your company, I'm going to give you a piece of my company. So instead of you working for me, I'm going to work for you. And I created an equity structure. It took me 8 attempts to get my exemption from the SEC to where I could give you equity in my company. What I would exchange with you is a certain number of rules and things that we had to engage each other. And I got to share in the upside of your business. So you got to share in mine and I got to share in yours. And I did that exchange. And then you embraced the things I built because they helped. Yes. And I wasn't telling you to do it. I was leading you and guiding you and showing you why you would want to do it. And so I had to create a legal structure that would allow me to do that. And I launched that in 2004 and amassed 250 independent business owners out of an industry of 12,000. And they grew 3.5 to 15 times larger than their peer group in both revenues and equity value. And so we created the most elite group of business owners in North America in that system. And then that's the system that I, once I created it and perfected it there through exit. And I started that business with $500,000 in my last money, paid myself back in 18 months, never borrowed any money, and never had a non-profitable quarter or month, and built the business all out of cash flow, generating $50 million in profits over 14 years. And then I sold it for $150 million. And when I sold it, I dispersed out 40% of the cash to my customers and my employees. I had them share the value with me versus outside financial people that had no interest in the success of the business.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm teaching people to do, because when you take outside capital, you have conflicting agenda.
Yeah.
And I like businesses that have no conflicting agendas. And what causes most businesses to stall, stagnate, or decline is conflicting agendas or loss of strategy or execution due to inexperience.
Now, all right, so makes perfect sense. What are the pros and cons of Cardone Ventures? So if you had a person out there, play both sides of the equation. What is the pro to becoming what's the positive to going down the path of Cardone Ventures? And maybe a lot of people may out there not even understand what Cardone Ventures is.
Yeah, I think there's 3 ways to engage us. So one, you can just come to my classes and programs and learn.
Yep.
So that's one advantage, is you don't have to give anything up. You can just choose to opt in and have access to all the methodologies I've created over the years that are proven to be successful, and you can learn them, develop them, and deploy them into your business. The second way you can work with us is you can learn and you can hire us consultatively to help you execute, so that you can bring in the right kind of expertise that all works in alignment with one mission. Because most businesses, as they grow, they start hiring people that the owners or the leaders think they have experience, and maybe they do, or maybe they don't, but then getting them all to work together with one purpose is a whole nother skill set.
Yep.
And usually until you're 50, 75, or 100 million, you slog through all that to try to find the right team. And that in itself causes businesses to decline, go out of business, or suffer. So with Cardone Ventures, you can hire that expertise in. We'll build your plan. You can hire us to help facilitate it with you, to grow you. And then again, you have total control of your business. And the third is, if the business opportunity is big enough and you're comfortable enough with us, you can also, we can talk about partnering with us, where we take a position in the upside and a management fee. And then we come in as an extension of your overall team to take full advantage of the market opportunity. Just like one of our first partners, $18 million business. And already we brought hundreds and hundreds of people into their business because of the massive size of the Grant Cardone ecosystem. So when we see a way to build a business, we can execute so much faster than any individual business owner that doesn't have that experience. So you can pay as you go, and hire us to consult you, or you can partner with us or we'll take a private equity position in the business. That's the fourth way. So the beautiful reason you want to work with Cardone Ventures is we're experts, we're proven methodologies and systems that work, and you can choose how you want to engage us, and you can engage and get comfortable with us without making any long-term commitments or promises. And so I try to make it as easy as possible to work with us.
So the percentage of the upside is, if it's a $4 or $5 million company and you step into the equation, okay, let's say you step into the equation, it's a $4 million company, and you help with your strategy, experiences, execution, ecosystem, you take it to 20 million, right? You just basically share in the upside piece. That's
correct.
Right? Okay. Now, out of all the people that you could have partnered with, of course, I met Grant in 2012. The funny thing is, people always ask me how I met Grant Cardone. I had a radio show at the time on the Fox News affiliate called Change Your Life Radio. And we believe 1 hour could change your life. So I was always looking for somebody to interview. And I'm walking through an airport and I see the book 10X. I pulled it up and said, this is a good looking dude. I had no idea who he was. And I called his office and said, man,
I think good looking could be debatable.
Well, so I called his office, have him on my show. We kind of connect. He begins having me on Cardone Zone. In those days, he was physically on the radio. And so he's doing a show every day. And I would pop in as a guest. And then he endorsed my book, Zebras and Cheetahs. And then I went down to the Riviera Maya to the original 10X event with 75 people, which was one of the coolest experiences because we coached all morning from 9 to 12. We literally went straight to the pool for 3 hours, and then we literally went straight to dinner at night. It was just a cool experience. So out of all the people you could partner with based on where you are in your life, why Grant Cardone? I mean, I know what I think he brings to the equation. Like how did this partnership come about?
Well, when my business sold, I had hired a couple big billion-dollar research firms and spent $1 million doing research over which industries I wanted to go to. That I felt like my overall business model would help independent business owners grow and scale. And so I had a target list of several hundred of these industries. And so originally I was out interviewing a bunch of my buddies that were in private equity. But what I was finding out is they wanted me to take over their distressed assets. And I started thinking about the dichotomy between me and my private equity group when I got pissed off. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I really want to be trapped between pissed off management and pissed off private equity guys and fix that stuff? And so I was getting disenchanted with that being my strategy. And so I was looking at a bunch of other strategies, and Natalie said to me, hey, you should look at some of these social media guys. Now, mind you, I'm a traditional business operator. I was not a social media guy. I had thousands of videos and training videos, but they were all in our system for our customers. I never did anything external. And so she started showing me Tony Robbins. I was like, very inspirational. Obviously, I had heard his name. And then she was showing me Gary Vee, and I was like, this guy's cool. He's hip. And then we looked at Ed Milet, and I kind of just bouncing around, learning some of these social media guys.
I just finished the Monster Growth Boot Camp at my lodge, and man, was it probably the best boot camp I've ever done. People will tell you, when they get in that room, magic happens.
It's like going to a Bruce Springsteen concert. He gave us more than I was expecting. I went to a concert one time with him, and it was 4 hours long, which was unusual. Coach Burt put his heart and soul into this thing.
It's an amazing experience because he brings so much energy, so much passion, and he always gives 120%.
Being coached by Coach today was fantastic.
Coach Burt has always helped me maximize my potential and go just above and beyond.
Being coached by Coach is one of the best investments that I've made in my life.
Coach is intense, and there's really nothing like being in the room with him.
If you do not know anything about Coach Burt, he's the people's coach.
The people were hungry, the environment was incredible and electric, the content was so rich and powerful. You see, I spent 2 days breaking down the entire Monster Growth system. How do you activate your prey drive? How do you explain your services in a world-class way? How do you generate leads through a selling system? How do you follow up like crazy? How do you become a person of interest? How do you extract referrals out of your current clients? For 2 days, we broke each part of that methodology down with real-life examples, practical frameworks, exercises for people to do. And people left there, man, on fire. It was incredible. If you get a chance to come to my lodge, spend 2 days with me. Let me break these concepts down. Monster Growth Boot Camp at my lodge, one of the best experiences of my life. Let's talk about intentional congruence. Because I think as I believe intentional congruence is where everything feeds everything, right? And when you generate money from your business, how do you coach people in what to do with that money? Let's say the business is kicking off, I don't know, whatever, $1 million extra a year, right? And you were coaching that business owner in where to reinvest that money. What would you tell them?
Yeah. So I have some principles for scaling and growing. First principle is if you're starting out by yourself, you need to build 6 months of cash reserves before you start hiring a bunch of people.
Yep.
And then as you hire people, you need to build 6 months of cash reserves that grows and scales with your fixed expenses. And then once you reserve 6 months of cash reserves, then you start forward investing. The next thing is if the business is working and you're able to do those two things, those are the tests, then you invest your $1 million into accelerating your growth because it's that asset that's growing that's causing the cash to be thrown off. And then once you start accelerating into your business and investing in the things that will allow it to breathe and grow, including your team to bring them along, and infrastructure support, you try to grow the primary asset until you hit your target. Once you hit your target, then you diversify into things like multifamily, or for me, for 20 years, it was mini storage. I'm a partner with a couple guys. We have 650,000 square feet, almost $100 million of mini storage. And those are just running behind the scenes, paying cash, because I don't want to be distracted with that. My core business is my business. So that's how I scale and grow personally, professionally, and financially. First, build up my reserves when I'm by myself, then build up my reserves in the business, then invest in the forward growth of the business with the cash I have. And then when I have target, I diversify in things that don't take my attention away. And what I love about Grant is investing in my business is finding multiple sources of income while I'm doing my thing I'm an expert in, versus, oh, I'm an expert in this and it's working, but I'm bored, so I'm going to go start something I know nothing about, like a restaurant, or go over here, and then those things crash and burn and pull my asset back. So that's how I advise and guide. It's very structured. It's what I've done. It's what I did at Cardone Ventures when we had the downturn. The company's only 1 year old. June was the first month of revenue. But between June and March, I had reserved $1.7 million. And so during COVID, I went from 12 employees to 26 because the hiring of great resources and assets that were getting laid off, I was able to pull them in. And we'll springboard to 15, 20 million this year, helping all these businesses. So when you're very disciplined in your approach and you have the resources, you can take advantage of moments. When you have access resources, you don't just let it sit and accumulate and not do anything. You're either investing in the business or you're pushing it into something like Cardone Capital. I'm the second or third largest investor in Cardone Capital. I've got $9.5 million in there because all my excess cash, I'm pushing it to Grant because he knows what he's doing. I'm focused on the business. And if I try to be great at everything, I'm going to be poor at lots of things. And so I stick to my lane, and that's how I guide and advise business owners I work with to do exactly the same thing.
All right, great. Last question. When you think about this concept of pursuit, because when you study prey drive, and I'm writing about this in the book, I really studied animals. Animals have a high prey drive, right? Specifically a dog. But if you study a dog, there's something that caught my attention about the dog, is that the mere ability to pursue the prey is such a strong motivator for the dog that no external factor is ever needed, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It is the pursuit of the prey that is such a strong motivator for the animal that there's nothing externally that could ever motivate it any greater than just the ability to pursue it. And what would you say to people out there as it relates? Because that's really flipping the switch. I mean, you get up now, you're wealthy, you do whatever you want, but you're still in the game, man. You're pursuing, you're pushing, you're working the muscle, you're going to another level. And that somehow feeds something inside of you. And talk a little bit about that for the person out there that's maybe in a complacent state. Maybe they're, we coach people who get to a certain income level and they get, like you just said, bored, complacent, stuck, static. Speak to the pursuit of setting bigger goals to reactivate your prey drive. Like right now, what is reactivating your prey drive?
For me, it's the passion and joy I get when I help people accomplish stuff they never even thought was possible. And it's balanced with the fear and frustration I get when I see people get trapped in the structure or the system that moves them into where it's good for somebody else and it's bad for the business owner. 45% of the GDP is created by people in construction, small healthcare, and real estate. 45% of the GDP is created by that group of people, and yet they represent 6% of the wealth on the stock exchange. So you have all these businesses and all these financial institutions that are getting unbelievably wealthy, and you've got 45% of the GDP, which is predominantly made up of small businesses, having zero access to any of that capital. And for me, that's the thing that kicks me in. I want to change that. That is not fair. The small business owner who is the number one employer in the country, who drives the most value to an individual human being that can accelerate their personal, professional, financial career, gets locked out trading their business at 2 to 4 times EBITDA because they're too small. And then they allow financial institutions to come in and gobble them up and grow them to $1 billion and then trade at 18 to 22 times EBITDA without actually adding any value at all.
Yep.
And for me, if there's one mission, it's to turn that on its heels and take 45% of the stock market and pair it to the 45% of all the great American people and North American people, Canada, Mexico, global, I don't care. Give them access to the money that otherwise has been engineered to not give them access. So the one thing that motivates me the most is watching people bust their ass their whole life and then get taken advantage of at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could tell just by your passion and conviction for that activates it in you.
Yeah. I'll go head to head with those guys. I get called in when people are in the middle of transactions, $100 million business, $200 million business. They're down to the wire. They think they got it. I'll walk in and there's a reason I got 77 times EBITDA for my business. I just helped my buddy sell his business for 45 times EBITDA. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to sell, trust me, the system is not geared for you. It's geared for the little investment banker or the little podunk town guy to make his fee. He's not going to negotiate the biggest, greatest deal for you. He just wants to make his fee. Then the bankers just want to do a transaction, and they have relationships with the people they're selling you to that they know that if they bring you to them, they're going to sell you to the next bigger one and they're going to make a bigger fee. Don't trust the marketplace.
Yeah.
You got to find somebody who's been there, who's done it, and who's an advocate for you as a business owner to maximize your value. And what I saw, Coach, there just isn't anybody out there. When I showed this to Grant, he's like, I 100% agree. That's why he's doing the real estate.
Yeah.
So when you look at the real estate with Cardone Capital, you look at Cardone Ventures, and you look at what we're building in between. You brought it up before, the congruence, the intentional congruence.
Yeah.
I call it law of circulation.
Mm-hmm.
If I pick a business owner up, I help them make a lot more money. They're going to invest in Cardone Capital. We're going to grow the business. We're going to go public together, or we're going to put them all together and access bigger dollars. And we're all going to work as one ecosystem with blinders on to all the noise out there. And we're going to saturate, dominate, and literally extract the value that these people deserve for all their years of hard work, but they don't know how to get there, and no one's really geared up to help them get there. And that's what my mission is.
Nice. Well, that's a perfect way to end, man. Great. Every time I'm with you, I'm fascinated by your skill set. I think you're number one, a great person. I think you're out there doing big things in the world, and what a noble cause to help the small, talented person. As you know, most people don't have a talent problem. They've got a strategy problem. They've got a scaling problem. They've got a knowledge problem. They don't have a talent problem. They are good at what they do. They just don't have that expertise of doing it, what you've done, which is why they stay stuck for so many years.
And they have a humility problem. You know, when you go back and you listen to my Facebook Live on your Facebook, when we got disconnected, and you listen to what I said about you, and why I love doing this show with you, is they have a humility problem, because these people need a coach that they can trust and lean into and let be hard on them and push them, stretch their rubber band, John Maxwell.
Yep.
And a lot of people are unwilling to do that because they're just good enough to get by. So they have a humility problem. And I think if business owners truly want to succeed, not for themselves, but for their constituency and their employees, they need a coach that they can trust, that will allow that coach to push them as hard and as far as possible.
100% agree. Well, what a great episode of Flip the Switch, how to activate the prey drive in you and your team. If this episode hasn't activated your prey drive, for the folks that are watching it, possibly you don't have the prey drive. So Brandon Dawson, I look forward to getting to know you at a deeper level, man. We're gonna spend time together and do business together and do things together. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I look forward to meeting you in person. We've met virtually multiple times, and I've been a fan of your work since I've been studying you. So thank you for everything.
Thanks,
guys.
Coach. Look forward to it.
Flip the switch, guys. Have a great day.
Everybody's got an opinion, but this is the bottom line. Listen, today's bottom line is on something near and dear to my heart. It's called self-improvement, making yourself better. There's a lot of people out there in the world that want to go through life and think and believe that they don't have to do anything to get better. They can just float around and improve automatically, which I think we all know is not the case. For example, I like to read, I like to listen to MP3s, I like to watch movies, I like to take interactive training courses, go figure. I like to try to improve myself so I can get better, get more polished, get more professional. Now watch, it works too, because check this out. Now, this is after all my practice, I'm able to sound like this.
Trained people always outperform untrained people. Coach people always outperform uncoached people. You can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. That's why everybody needs a good coach in life. There's only 3 modes of operation you're operating in today. You're either dynamic and growing, you're static and plateaued, or you're entropic, you're dying. And the minute you stop growing, you start dying. So if you're going to flounder around for the rest of your life and not get any better because you don't have a coach in your life, you're going to continue getting the same results over and over and over. You need a person in your life who will have hard conversations with you, make you do things you don't want to do, help you become something you didn't think you could become. You need somebody coaching you. If you're not interested in your own potential, why should other people be interested in your potential? This idea of embryonic growth, that you'll be better today than you were yesterday. You'll be better tomorrow than you are today. That you never stop getting better. But if you're going to lay around, do nothing, you're going to wake up years from now and you're going to have regret. The way you minimize that regret is you take action. You feel guilty because you're not doing what you should be doing. You're not becoming what you're capable of becoming. You're not going out there and crushing your potential. You're just laying around and goofing off, wasting it.
And that's the bottom line.
Throw me a frickin' bone here.